have a ton to cover today, but hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel. For all those who are new here, welcome. My name is Erin. I love to do all things fiber art related, and I love putting together these monthly catch-up videos where I kind of just go over all of my recent creations from the last few weeks. So I did compile, I believe this is all from January. I do have one piece from December that I didn't get to cover last time. So let's just go ahead and dive into the massive pile. Now I will admit that all of January, I spent most of my time knitting or using the knitting machine. So a lot of these pieces are actually knit for once, which is a nice little change up from my usual. So let's go ahead and start off with the very first piece. And this throws all the way back from December. I'm super proud of this make because not only did I make this sweater for myself, but I also wanted to make something large enough for my boyfriend Jordan to wear. So this is the brand new color block sweater. For all of those who are asking, yes, I do have a tutorial for this up on my channel right now. I'll go ahead and link it somewhere up here. But for all of those who don't really want a color block, you could totally follow the same exact tutorial and make it all solid color, or you can even add in more stripes if you would like. But I just wanted to throw together another very basic crochet piece that you guys could follow along to. Now, I will admit, this is pretty massive, but if you guys know me, I do love to wear my stuff oversized a lot of times. So I'm loving the fit and the drape of this, but let's just go ahead and give you guys a little bit of details, a little bit of specifics. Now, I believe that I used the Hobie Divina yarn to make this entire sweater. It's an extremely gorgeous, kind of pricey type of yarn, but for the quality that it has, I'm very, very impressed with this fiber. What I love the most about this Divina yarn is it does have a chainette construction, which you guys know is probably some of my favorite type of fibers. It just has a really gorgeous, very lightweight kind of drape to it. And with this sweater, when I was making the tutorial, originally it did have a little bit more of a wide neck, boat neck type of feel. So if you guys want to leave off the collar, you will get a little bit more of an exposed neckline. But because Jordan's wearing this, I don't really like it when his shirts poke out and show from underneath the sweater. So I did go back in and add a few rows just to the collar to just kind of tighten it up and make it a little bit more form-fitting, a little bit more neck-fitting. So this is what she looks like. I'm in love with her. If you guys have seen over on Instagram, I've been wearing this thing nonstop, and thankfully Jordan does love this as well. If you guys can tell with the sleeves, I actually created a little bit more of a tapered effect just because I didn't want the very cuff of the sleeve to be super wide and almost bell sleeve. So every couple of rows, I did make sure to add or create a decrease, which did allow for a slight tapered effect. That way, if I really want to, I can kind of just cuff the sleeve a little bit and it's not, you know, super oversized and baggy on my arms. So really, really proud of this creation. Again, if you guys want to create this for yourself using whatever yarn you would like, I do have a tutorial on my channel and it's always made to measure. So in case you guys aren't an XL or a large, if you guys are a small, a medium, what have you, you can tailor the pattern to fit your body exactly how you would like it. So this is make number one, the gorgeous color block sweater. Round of applause for the sweater because I think it took me almost a whole month to finish her up. So let's go ahead and move on to the next creation. Now these aren't necessarily in any order. I'm just gonna pull them off of the pile. Your girl is very proud of this make because this was actually my first attempt at making a sweater using the knitting machine. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'm gonna go ahead and link another video right here for you guys to check out. But as you guys have probably seen, I was recently gifted a 48 needle knitting machine and I wanted to put my skills to the test and see what I could create. And believe it or not, I don't know how I did it, but I created this whole sweater in about 4 to 5 hours. It was so incredibly simple and beginner friendly, especially for a beginner like me who has never used a machine before. And because I know you guys are going to ask, the yarn that I used to create this little top sweater creation is the Lion Brand Scarfy Light. Now, let me tell you guys that I am actually a huge fan of this yarn, but there are some pros and there are some cons. So right off of the bat, the colorway is extremely eye-catching, very soft on the eyes with little bits and pops of color. It does have somewhat of a striping nature, but as you can tell, it's very, very subtle. So you do get a mixture of pastels with the shade as well as deeper, you know, just more eye-catching color. So this yarn, I believe, is labeled as a number 4 worsted weight yarn, but the only con at this moment that I can really think of is, as you can probably see, there is a ton of fluff and fuzziness to this yarn. So the pro to that is it does add a very lightweight, warm characteristic to it. But on the downside, the more that I have worn the sweater and just kind of washed it and whatnot, hopefully you guys are able to see how much fluff has been added on post creation. And I will note also that the areas that have the most use, such as the sleeves and the cuffs, there is starting to be a little bit of pilling going on. So I am concerned about the durability of this yarn long term, but for what it's worth, this yarn is absolutely stunning. I would have to give it an 8 out of 10. Just look at this color. It feels extremely soft to the touch. I know a lot of people were worried that the Scarfy Light was going to be a little bit itchy, and for me, it is definitely not at all. It's very comfortable on my skin. The way that I created this very simple sweater was honestly, I made a front panel, which was just a big square. There was no decreases, just imagine a square. So I made a front panel and a back panel. Nothing crazy. And then when it came to the sleeves, because I was using the knitting machine, I didn't want to knit them in the round because the sleeves would have been way too large and baggy. So I decided to create just 2 super long rectangles, and then very messily I stitched them together underneath the arm. Now, because this was my very first attempt at making a paneled item, due to the sewing that has to be done at the upper shoulder section and underneath the arms, it is very, very messy. She's not perfect by any means. You can totally see yarn peeking out. So there are little imperfections, but because this is my first make on the machine, it's definitely holding a very special place in my heart. I can't be more proud of myself for at least trying in the first place. And I would have to say my favorite part about this top or sweater is the rolled hem effect that you get from creating something in the stockinette. So make number 2, this is from January. Now I'm gonna go ahead and sift through my pile. Oh, I almost forgot about these. So recently in January, I did launch a new video where I decided to add on some crochet to the very bottom of Jordan's pants. Now I have to give all the credit to Jordan because this was actually his idea. So I decided to thrift flip them a little bit and add a little neutral flare. So honestly, the way that I went about this, and I will also link the video here, is I went in with some embroidery thread just to add kind of like a blanket stitch to the very base of the cuffs. And then at that point, I really just crocheted directly into the threading, and I'm very pleasantly surprised with the outcome. When Jordan came home and saw what I made, he was blown away. These are actually some of his new favorite pair of pants, so thankfully he did not throw these away because my heart would have been so broken. But I'm a huge fan of adding on a little bit of crochet to clothing that you already have. Sometimes we don't always want to wear full on crochet items like this because it can be a little bit much, and as we know, it can be kind of hot and warm and thick. So by adding on a little touch to your pants or even like onto the cuffs of a sweater, I feel like you're kind of knocking up your piece a level and still adding a little bit of like a personal touch. After creating these pants, I had so many people DM me and comment on my video and tell me that I should be adding crochet onto a ton of other items. And to be honest with you guys, my too much gene is taking over, and now I have this overwhelming urge to crochet a whole leg of pants onto some thrifted shorts that I have in my closet right now. So I'm very thankful for all of you to give me some more inspiration and motivation and just give me more crafting ideas, because that video is definitely coming soon. It's gonna take me a little bit of time, but I think the outcome is definitely going to be worth it. Now, I will have to admit that the rest of my pieces are all knit, which is definitely a first for me. I mainly focus on doing crochet, but recently with that knitting machine, I have been a fiend. I have been on a bender. I've been on a little knitting kick. So let's go ahead and pull out the second creation that I made on the knitting machine. Now, again, she's not perfect, But let's just take a moment to admire and praise the colorway of this yarn. I had this Caron Skinny Cakes sitting in my closet for about 2 months, and finally I was able to put it to the test and see how it works up. And let me tell you guys, Caron Cakes have been killing it in stores. They're always launching new lines and fibers of cakes, and every time they have something new, I'm blown away. I believe that this is labeled as a number 3 lightweight or DK yarn. In my opinion, it's kind of like a sport weight because it's pretty darn thin. But this yarn is a 100% acrylic fiber. It does have a slight bit of fuzziness to it, but it does make it extremely touchably soft. And because it is a lightweight DK or sport weight yarn, it's pretty darn breathable. Now, as I mentioned earlier, with the 48 needle machine, you can knit in the round, but I really wanted to practice and hone in on my panel skills. So honestly, I made 2 gigantic rectangular panels, no increases, no decreases, just very straightforward. And once I had those created, I just went in, stitched them together on the sides. So you are able to see that it is, you know, stitched together. They are panels. It doesn't look perfect as well, but I kind of like that little bit of a patchwork effect that you get when you're seaming together 2 panels. So this is kind of like a maxi midi skirt. You could also pull this up and wear it as like a tube dress. So I'm a huge fan of this. I was also able to test out and use my I-cord knitting machine for the very first time, and I'm so pleasantly surprised at how smooth and effortless it was to create an I-cord. Now, of course, you can go in by hand and just crochet these, but the machine just makes it a lot quicker to get things done. So I added a little I-cord to the very top of the skirt just to help cinch it and tighten it up on my belly. And because I still had a good amount of that cake left over, I decided to make a last minute tube top just to kind of pair it with the skirt. Now again, not perfect, not completely matching by any means, but instead of creating panels with this little bandeau tube top, I actually just knitted this one in the round, and then I have to like really stretch and squeeze into this to fit. So I do want you guys to keep that in mind, that when it comes to the knitting machine, of course you can knit in the round and in flat panels, but when you're knitting in the round, you can only make it so wide and so large, which is why I tend to create panels instead, because I can make the panels a lot larger than something that is knitted in the round. You guys get what I'm saying. So this is the little tube top that I created. I am thinking that I'm going to be listing this over on my website. So if you guys would like a matching knitted set, feel free to go ahead and check that out. Now, the last 2 pieces that I created at the very end of January, I'm not going to touch on too long because I did film a whole video creating these 2 items, but I just wanted to show them off to you guys, talk a little bit about the construction and the fibers that I used. These colorways are absolutely to die for. Let me tell you, this fiber in itself has stolen my heart. I think at the moment it is the yarn of the year. Now let's take a moment to dive into the yarn fiber that I used to create this little top sweater. As you guys have probably seen over on my Instagram, I have been raving about the Caron Blossom Cakes. I saw it online and I went into the stores 3 separate times waiting for them to stock it on the shelves. And finally, by my 4th visit, they finally had it out and available to the public. So this is the Caron Blossom Cakes. I believe Caron Cakes recently launched this new fiber for spring/summer because this is actually made out of 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. As we all know, cotton is very lightweight and breathable. It's perfect for the summer months. But with that 40% acrylic, it does make this fiber extremely touchably soft. And again, this is also a chain knit construction. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring you guys in nice and close up just so that you can see what this fiber looks like in its glory when it's all knitted up. As I said, very, very touchably soft. And again, with that acrylic in there, I have noticed that it does come with a subtle halo or fuzzing, but for the amount of times that I have worn this, it hasn't pilled or fleeced on me too extreme. So I'm a huge, huge fan of this fiber. Definitely one of my favorites for the whole year. I already know this is gonna take the cake. And if you guys are wondering, I believe that this is in the colorway Tropical Blooms, and I had to go pick up a few more cakes of this colorway because I am flabbergasted at how neon and rainbow and just eye-catching this colorway is. Now, one thing I did notice with the Karen Blossom cakes is when I was using this to create panels on my knitting machine, for whatever reason, due to the texture of this fiber, the edges would catch kind of funky on the panels, and if you're not careful, you can slip or lose stitches or drop stitches off of your knitting machine. So I had to be very cautious and make sure to watch for the needle to pick up the yarn correctly. But other than that, when it is being worked across the panel, it was effortless. As you can see, there's really no inconsistencies. The tension is great. She's perfect. So I am a huge sucker for this fiber, but I did just want to let you guys know that with the knitting machine, it can act up a little bit funky, but oddly enough, when I was using the Lion Brand Scarfy Light to make this sweater, which has way more fuzz and fluffiness to it, for whatever reason, this didn't create any issues for me. The edges of my panel picked up just perfectly, and believe it or not, this yarn was actually a breeze to knit with in comparison to the Blossom cakes. But regardless, need I say more? I'm not gonna talk about her anymore because I'm rambling way too much. Now, for the very last make of January, your girl decided to go all in and put my skills to the ultimate test, and I created this little micro mini dress. Now, this yarn in itself is also extremely gorgeous. You do have more of a self-striping nature, but very similar to the Blossom cakes, it does have a crazy amount of color jam packed into it. Now, if I can remember correctly, I believe this fiber is the Yarbo Cookie Cakes. I'm gonna go ahead and leave the info here on screen. And in stark contrast to the Blossom Cakes, this is actually a 100% acrylic fiber. I believe it's premium acrylic, and I have to say that this colorway is also very unique and jaw-dropping on its own. Now, I believe that the Yarbo Cookie Cake is actually labeled as a number 4 worsted weight online, but to give you guys an honest review and opinion, this is at most a lightweight DK fiber. So I do want you guys to keep that in mind. When I stretch this across my body, it does have a slight sheer effect versus the worsted weight yarn is completely opaque. You can't see through it at all. But I'm a huge sucker for this yarn. It has such a gorgeous drape and flow to it. Again, it's very perfect for summer or for spring. So if you guys would like to check out the Yarbo Cookie Cakes, I did recently also make a different sweater tutorial with crochet using a different Yarbo Cookie colorway, and these are another favorite fiber of mine. So let's go ahead and show you guys the colors up close. This is what she's looking like. As I mentioned, self-striping nature. And then I changed up my skills. I changed up my tactic a little bit to make the sleeves. As I mentioned earlier, you can totally make panels and sew them together, but you are adding on a little bit extra work than necessary. I decided to purchase the 30 needle knitting machine just because I wanted to be able to knit the sleeves in the round and eliminate that extra work of seaming. So these were actually created just by tubular function, tubular setting. So this dress was a little bit quicker to work up, and she is a stunner. This is also another item that I do plan on listing on my website. So if you guys would like to purchase this for yourself, I'll have it up shortly, but I can't say too much about her. She's a dress, she's made with panels. There's nothing new, nothing exciting here. But if you guys couldn't tell, I have fallen in love with using the knitting machine. It's such a joy. It's such a blast to work with. I actually posted a knitting machine reel over on my Instagram, and for the first time ever, it actually caught a ton of wind, a ton of traction. I'm gonna go ahead and show it here, but I did want to note that although I had 95% positive comments, there were a handful of people who were hating on the knitting machine and putting others down for their choice to use a knitting machine instead of handheld knitting needles. And I just want to be the first to say that it doesn't matter if you use a knitting machine, and it doesn't matter if you knit by hand. both crafts are respectful in their own nature. So if you guys have the urge or the want or the desire to use a knitting machine, don't let others tear you down. If you want to use the knitting machine, use the knitting machine. If you want to knit by hand, knit by hand. Crafting is crafting regardless. And I'm just proud of all of you guys for creating things in the first place. Now, I also have to note that the knitting machine cannot completely replace knitting by hand or with physical knitting needles. Although you still can do a ton of different designs and creations with the knitting machine, certain designs you can't replicate with the machine. You still have to make it by hand. So there's pros and cons to knitting by hand, and there's pros and cons to knitting with the machine. Regardless, it doesn't matter how you're crafting. All that matters is that you're trying in the first place and you're using your creativity to make what you want to make. So that is my little ramble. Moving on, the last little make that I wanted to just quickly show on camera before I close out the video. I don't know if you guys can tell what this is, but I had some leftover Noro Ito yarn from a previous creation that I made, and I didn't want it to go to waste because Noro Ito yarn is extremely expensive. It's about $50 per cake or ball of yarn. So I wanted to get as much use out of my stash yarn as possible. And if you guys can kind of see what this is, I decided to make something that was heavily inspired by art by Carolise over on Instagram. She knitted up a super gorgeous mini skirt with a slight ruffle effect at the bottom, which I thought was so simple but so versatile and so gorgeous. I love the basics. You guys know me. It is extremely short, so I'm not sure yet if I have to go back in and add more rows to my little ruffle hem here, but for what it's worth, she is gorgeous. And yes, I actually knitted this by hand with knitting needles. So this took me honestly about 2 to 3 weeks to knit up, just because I wasn't working on it every single day. But you guys know I'm a sucker for this colorway. So stunning. I love the deeper vibes. You still got a little bit of like lime green in there. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the Noro Ito yarn is 100% wool. Now, wool gets kind of a bad rep because sometimes, a lot of times, it can be extremely itchy and scratchy and rough on your skin. But for what it's worth, the Ito yarn feels like a merino wool. So I would highly recommend that you guys go check out the Noro yarns. Such great quality. Wool's gonna hold up really, really well over time and long term. I mean, just look at her. So I still actually have to try this on and see how she fits, but I wanted to give her a quick little moment here on camera. And before I go ahead and wrap up this video, the last few makes I wanted to show off here on camera because a ton of my newcomers here don't know that I have my own website where I sell not only hand-dyed yarn, but I also hand make crochet resin hooks. For February, I wanted to launch a few new designs, so I wanted to show them off to you guys because they are currently available over on my website. So this first design that I created, of course it is for Valentine's Day, but this is my little candy heart hook set. It does have a really gorgeous subtle glimmer and glitter in the sun, but I decided to add in a bunch of these little colorful hearts. And honestly, these are my favorite because not only can you use these for Valentine's, but because there's so much color, I feel like these are perfect for any time of the year. So here they are. I've been using them almost every single day, which is why I'm missing one from my set. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be restocking these due to the design. So these are limited edition at the moment, but the second set, which I also launched for the upcoming Valentine's Day, this is my XOXO resin set. And as you can see, they just have a bunch of X's and O's with some more little candy hearts inside. So it has a little bit more of a greenish, bluish colorway, but these are super cute as well. And also possibly limited edition. I'm not sure if I'm restocking these either. But I just wanted to give these guys a little shout out because I do work really hard to create resin hooks. They take a long time, and I'm really proud to be able to put out new designs almost every single month. So I'm really happy with these creations. If you guys are interested, I will go ahead and leave my link here on screen as well as down below in the description for you guys to check out my resin sets and my hand dyed yarn. So that's gonna go ahead and wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and for watching. I hope you guys are inspired and motivated by some of these recent creations. I have a ton. If you guys want to get a knitting machine, test it out. They're a ton of fun to work with. Introduce it to your kid, have fun, and I'll be seeing you all very soon. Bye!